The fortress smells like winter stone and old violence. I walk the corridor alone, torches throwing shadows that look too much like teeth. My borrowed cloak drags against the floor, heavy as the silence pressing down on my shoulders. Omegas don't walk these halls. We don't look kings in the eye. We certainly don't beg for mercy when mercy hasn't existed here in a decade. But my village is starving. My brother faces execution at dawn, and the Alpha King is the only one who can stop it. I feel him before the guards announce him. A weight in the air, thick and waiting. Then he steps from the dark, armor black as a funeral, long hair falling past shoulders built for war. His hand closes around my throat, not crushing, just holding, testing. He inhales, and something shifts in his eyes. Gold bleeds through the brown, and the growl that rolls from his chest makes the torches flicker. "I can't control myself around you," he says, voice rough as gravel. "Not your scent, not your heartbeat, not this." I should bow, I should beg. Instead, I meet those burning eyes and whisper, "Good. Then maybe you'll finally listen." They make me wait just long enough to remember exactly what I am. An Omega in a hall, built for alphas. The throne room is colder than the corridor, despite the torches lining the stone walls. Sound shivers up to the vaulted ceiling. Whispers, rustling fabric, the scrape of armor as warriors shift their weight to get a better look at me. I feel their gazes like claws, testing, weighing, already deciding I don't belong here. The guards stop 2 steps from the foot of the dais. The impact of their spears on the stone echoes through the hall, sharp as a slap. "Kneel," one of them mutters. My body knows how. Years of practice, knees hitting dirt or stone whenever someone with more teeth than me snaps their fingers. But I force my spine to stay straight. My hands tremble inside my sleeves, so I curl them into fists and pretend it's from anger, not fear. Then he moves. Daniel doesn't just sit on the throne, he occupies it, sprawled like the carved stone was molded around him. Black armor hugs his shoulders and chest, metal layered like scales. His long hair is pulled back from his face, bound in tight braids that make the sharp lines of his jaw look even more severe. When he rises, the entire hall seems to tilt around him. The murmurs die as if someone cut their throats. "Bring her closer," he says. The guards obey at once. Fingers clamp around my elbows, propelling me forward until I stand at the base of the dais, close enough to see the faint golden ring around his pupils. Close enough to smell him, cold iron, leather, and something darker underneath, wild and dangerous. "So," his voice is smooth at first, almost bored. "The Omega from the border village." He doesn't use my name. No one announced it. I don't know if that's because the herald forgot, or because he didn't think it mattered. "My name is Roselle," I say anyway, "from Grey Hollow." One dark brow lifts. "Roselle from Grey Hollow," he repeats, as if tasting the sound. "You demanded an audience with your king, bold." "I begged," I correct. "Your men just didn't like the word." A ripple of uneasy laughter moves through the court. Daniel's mouth curves, but it isn't quite a smile. "You begged," he echoes. "For what, precisely?" I swallow. This is why I came. Not to trade barbs in front of nobles who would happily watch me thrown to the wolves below the cliff. "For food," I say, "and for my brother's life." The laughter dies. "Ah," he says softly. He descends 1 step, then another, until we're almost eye level. Almost, because even on the lower stair, he's still taller, still looking down on me like he's deciding where to bite. "The thief. He stole from royal stores because the shipments stopped coming," I answer, the words tumbling out faster now that I've started. "You decree rations for the borderlands every winter. We used to get them. This year, we got 2 carts of mold and stone." He studies me, head tilted. "You accuse your king of withholding aid." I meet his gaze and feel heat claw at my throat. "I accuse someone of it. If you didn't know, then someone is using your name to starve your own people." Gasps break like waves around us. Court ladies press gloved hands to their mouths. A few warriors smirk, hungry for the spectacle of an Omega sentencing herself with each careless word. Daniel does not smirk. He steps down the last stair, closing the distance between us. I can see the faint scar along his left cheek now, the one rumors say he earned fighting off 3 rogues alone. His hand lifts, fingers calloused and bare, and for a heartbeat, I think he's going to strike me. Instead, he cups my jaw. The touch is firm, not gentle, thumb pressing against the hinge of my jaw as he tilts my face up into the full weight of his gaze. My pulse slams against his palm. I know he can feel it. His eyes flare just slightly, that gold brightening. "Careful, little Omega," he murmurs, soft enough that the nearest courtiers have to lean in to hear. "Your tongue is braver than your station." "My station is starving," I whisper back. "Bravery is all that's left." There. The smallest crack in his composure, like a tremor under stone. His fingers tighten a fraction. He inhales again, deeper this time, and his nostrils flare. The air around us thickens, heavy with something I can't name. The court thinks he's angry. They're wrong. Heat flickers along my skin, low and coiling, responding to the way his thumb strokes once along the line of my throat, before he seems to realize he's doing it. His jaw clenches. The gold in his eyes spills wider, burning. "I warned you," he says, so quiet the hall might as well have vanished. "I can't control myself around your scent." I remember the corridor, his hand at my throat, that same warning. Back then, I thought it was a threat. Now I feel the edge of it. The danger, yes, but also something else. A pull, a recognition. The bond curls in the air between us like smoke. I don't have words for it at first. The way my lungs forget how to work, how every instinct screams at me to lean closer, even as sense tells me to run. His fingers are still on my skin. I feel the tremor in them, the battle he's fighting with his own body. Behind us, voices stir. "My king," someone starts. "Release her," another urges. "Before." He ignores them. "Tell me," Daniel says, voice roughening. "Why did your brother steal?" "Because children were fainting in the fields," I answer without hesitation. "Because old people were dying with their hands still reaching for empty bowls. Because your last shipment was rocks and rot, and the next one never came at all." The words spill past my fear, sharpened by it. If I die today, I will not do it whispering. "Yet you came alone," he says. "No delegation, no escort." "Who would you have sent?" I ask. "An alpha? You don't listen when Omegas scream at the gates. You would never have heard me if I hadn't made them bring me to you." Another murmur. This one feels different. Less hunger for blood, more unease. His thumb has stilled. I feel his breathing change, slower, heavier. It drags over my skin like heat. "You think I do not know what happens in my own kingdom," he says. I say carefully, that someone is very good at making sure you only see what they want you to see." Silence. Thick enough to choke on. Then, softly, dangerously, he laughs. "Look at them," he says, not taking his eyes off me. "Half of them praying I tear out your throat. The other half praying I make you my pet so they can whisper about my weakness." My heart thunders. The word pet scrapes something raw inside me. "I am not a pet," I say. His head tilts. "No," he agrees. "You're a problem." His hand slides from my jaw to the back of my neck. The motion jerks me a step closer, my chest brushing the hard plane of his armor. A few people actually gasp aloud. I feel their shock, as if it were a physical thing. "This is inappropriate, my king," a voice calls from the side of the hall. An older alpha, gray at the temples, eyes narrowed. "She is an Omega," Daniel finishes. His fingers spread against the nape of my neck, heat searing into my skin. "One who came to my court and accused my council of treason, if you were listening." The older alpha stiffens, a few more faces pale. Daniel leans down, his breath skimming my ear. "Let's see which one of us is right, Roselle from Grey Hollow. But first..." He inhales again, deep and deliberate. The sound is obscene in the hush of the hall. My knees threaten to buckle. The bond snaps like a live wire, a crack of energy that makes every hair on my arms stand on end. "Oh," gasps. A low growl from somewhere behind him. Someone whispers the word. "Bonded." I feel it too, something inside me answering him, a thread tightening between our chests. My vision blurs for a heartbeat, and when it clears, the world is sharper. Every breathing body in the room has a flavor to their scent. His is a thunderhead on the horizon, electric and inevitable. He jerks back as if burned. His hand falls away, leaving my skin exposed and suddenly cold. For the first time since I entered the fortress, he looks unsettled. "Well," he says, voice scraped thin, "it seems my court has a new entertainment." He lifts his chin, gaze sweeping the hall, but the weight of it keeps circling me back to me. "Until I discover who has been starving my borderlands," he announces, "the Omega stays here, under my protection." The last word lands like a challenge. Around us, the court becomes a forest full of predators scenting a storm. I stand at the eye of it, throat still tingling where his fingers were, aware that with one reckless decision, I've become exactly what I never wanted to be. The Omega the king couldn't stay away from. They call it guest quarters, but I know a cage when I see one. The chamber is small, tucked into the Alpha Wing, where every footstep echoes and every door opens onto another corridor filled with warriors who look at me like I'm prey that wandered into the den. The bed is piled with furs I don't deserve, the window barred with iron scrollwork that might be decorative if it didn't lock from the outside. A fire burns in the hearth, but the warmth never quite reaches the corners. I've been here 3 days, and I still haven't seen my brother. The servant who brings my meals, a quiet woman with graying hair and downcast eyes, won't meet my gaze. When I ask about him, she shakes her head and leaves faster. When I ask about Daniel, she pretends not to hear. On the 4th morning, I stop asking. Instead, I test the door. Locked, of course, but the guard outside doesn't growl when I knock, just opens it a crack and stares at me with flat, unimpressed eyes. "I need to speak to the king," I say. "The king is occupied." "Then I'll wait." "In your room." The door shuts. The lock clicks. I press my forehead against the wood and count to 10, then 20, then stop counting because the rage building in my chest doesn't have numbers high enough. When the door opens again an hour later, I expect the servant with lunch. Instead, it's a man I recognize from the throne room. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of sharp-edged smile that makes my skin crawl. His scent rolls into the room before he does. Musk and sweat and something sour underneath. "So this is where he's keeping you," the man says, leaning against the doorframe like he owns it. "Cozy." I take a step back. "I didn't invite you in." "Didn't need an invitation." He steps inside, and the guard outside doesn't stop him. "I'm Lord Garrett, council member. Thought I'd introduce myself since you made such an impression the other day." His gaze drags over me, slow and deliberate. I feel it like hands I didn't give permission to touch. "The king said I was under his protection," I say, keeping my voice level. "Protection," Garrett repeats, tasting the word like it's funny. "Is that what he's calling it?" He moves closer, circling me the way Daniel did in the throne room. But there's nothing careful in this, nothing that feels like restraint. "You know what the court thinks, don't you? That you've bewitched him, that he's keeping you here for his own entertainment." "Then the court doesn't know him very well." Garrett laughs, sharp and ugly. "Oh, I know him. Known him since he was a pup barely old enough to shift, and I've never seen him lose control over anything, let alone an Omega." The way he says Omega makes it sound like something dirty. "If you have a point," I say, "make it and leave." His smile vanishes. In one step, he closes the distance, hand snapping out to catch my wrist. His grip is tight enough to bruise, and when I try to pull away, he yanks me closer. "The point," he says, voice dropping low, "is that you don't belong here. You're a distraction, a liability, and the longer you stay, the weaker he looks. Let go of me." "Or what?" He leans in, breath hot against my cheek. "You'll scream? You'll run to your king and tell him the big bad alpha scared you?" I don't scream. I twist, jamming my knee up toward his groin, the way my brother taught me when we were young, and the world was already teaching me that being small meant being a target. Garrett jerks back, but not fast enough. He grunts, his grip loosening, just enough for me to wrench free. Touch me again, I spit, and I'll make sure the king knows exactly what kind of loyalty his council offers. For a moment, I think he's going to hit me. His hand rises, fingers curling into a fist, the door slams open. Daniel fills the doorway, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. He's not in armor this time, just a dark tunic and trousers, but somehow he looks more dangerous. His eyes are already burning gold, fixed on Garrett, with the kind of focus that precedes violence. My king, Garrett starts, stepping back, hands rising in a gesture that might be surrender or mockery. I was just leaving, Daniel finishes. His voice is soft, too soft, the kind of quiet that comes before an avalanche. Now. Garrett's jaw tightens, but he's not stupid enough to argue. He sketches a mocking bow in my direction, then strides past Daniel and out into the hall. The sound of his footsteps fades, swallowed by stone and distance. Daniel doesn't move, doesn't look away from where Garrett touched me, his gaze locked on my wrist like he can still see the fingerprints. Did he hurt you? He asks. No. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. I handled it. I saw. Something flickers across his expression, too fast to name. He steps into the room, and the door swings shut behind him with a finality that makes my pulse jump. You shouldn't have had to. Why was he in here at all? You said I was under your protection. You are. Then why do your people keep treating me like I'm something they can corner and break? The question comes out sharper than I intended, but I don't take it back. I'm tired of swallowing anger to make myself smaller, safer, less of an inconvenience. Daniel crosses the room in 3 strides. For a heartbeat, I think he's going to grab me the way Garrett did. But when his hand lifts, it hovers near my face, not quite touching. Because they're testing me, he says quietly, seeing how far they can push before I break. And? His fingers brush my cheek, featherlight. The bond hums between us, a low vibration I feel in my bones. They're closer than they think. I should step back, put distance between us before this thing pulling us together snaps all the way tight. But I don't move, and neither does he. I didn't ask for this, I whisper. Neither did I. His thumb traces the line of my jaw, the same way it did in the throne room, and my breath catches. But here we are. What happens now? His hand drops. He turns away, jaw tight, shoulders rigid with the effort of whatever he's holding back. Now, he says, I make it clear that anyone who touches you answers to me, and you stay in this room until I know who's been sabotaging the shipments to your village. So I'm still a prisoner. You're alive, he counters. In a fortress full of wolves who would happily use you to weaken me, that's not nothing. He's right, and I hate that he's right. My brother, I start. Is safe, Daniel interrupts. Fed, housed, and under guard. I'll bring him to you when I'm certain it won't be used as leverage against either of us. He moves toward the door, but I step into his path before I can think better of it. You can't keep me locked in here forever. His eyes meet mine, and for a moment, the careful control slips. I see the edge of whatever he's been caging since the throne room. Hunger, frustration, something wild and wanting that mirrors the pull in my own chest. No, he agrees softly. I can't. Then he's gone, the door closing behind him, and I'm alone again in my cage of stone and gold, the ghost of his touch still burning on my skin. At first, the fortress speaks in silence. Then I learn how to listen. It starts with Lisa, the gray-haired servant who brings my meals. For days, she treats me like a ghost. Eyes down, mouth pressed thin, in and out, without a word. One evening, when she sets the tray down, I catch the sleeve of her dress before she can vanish. Sit a moment, I say. Please. She hesitates like I've asked her to commit treason, but her knees must be as tired as mine, as she lowers herself onto the bench by the fire. Up close, I can see the fine lines etched at the corners of her eyes, the silver thread of a scar along her jaw. You shouldn't ask that, she murmurs. It's not fitting. Neither is starving a village, I answer. And yet, here we are. Her gaze flicks to mine, startled. For a heartbeat, something like approval flashes there. You're braver than is wise, Omega. Roselle, I correct. If you're going to risk sitting, you might as well risk my name. Her lips twitch. It's not quite a smile, but it's the closest I've seen. After that, she lingers. Not long. Never long. But enough to let small things slip. Which guards drink too much. Which counselors shout behind closed doors. Which corridors the king walks when sleep won't come. Your village isn't the only one missing shipments, she says one night, voice low over the crackle of the fire. The northern posts are thin too. Funny thing though, the central packs feast like nothing's wrong. Funny, I echo. It doesn't feel funny, it feels deliberate. The next thread comes from a guard. His name is Tomas, though it takes me 3 nights of nods and shared silences to pry it from him. He's young, with a crooked nose like it's been broken more than once, and eyes that won't quite meet mine when he speaks. He takes over the door outside my chamber on the rotation, quieter than the others, watchful in a way that doesn't feel like I'm prey. The first time I wake from a nightmare, loud enough to rattle the door, he doesn't pretend he didn't hear. He opens it a crack, concern flickering over his face. Are you harmed? He asks. Only in the ways I already was, I say, pushing my hair back with shaking hands. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. Not much disturbs these walls, he says. A voice proves they're still holding. The next time his shift falls on my door, I bring 2 cups of watered wine from dinner and sit on the floor with my back against the wood. If you're going to listen to me breathe all night, I say, you might as well have company. He stiffens on the other side. This isn't fitting, I finish. Yes, I'm learning that word doesn't mean much good for people like me. Eventually, the cup disappears from my hand. I hear him drink, swallow, exhale like it's the first real breath he's taken all evening. It's remarkable how quickly people talk when you treat them like they exist. Some of the others think you're cursed. He tells me after a while that having you here will bring the king down. Do you think that? I ask. No. A pause. I think he was already standing on a cliff. You just lit a torch so we can all see the drop. What cliff? Half the council hates that he won't expand the borders, Tomas says. Says peace makes us soft. Says trading with humans is the same as bowing to them. And the famine? There's the faintest scrape as he shifts, metal brushing stone. They say it's punishment, he murmurs, for letting border packs forget who rules them. My skin prickles. Who says that? Men who never went hungry in their lives. After that, I listen harder. I learn which floorboards creak and which don't. I learn that the alpha wing carries sound like gossip. If I sit by the vent near the hearth and pretend to sew, voices drift down from the council chamber above in muffled fragments. Borderlands. Embarrassment. Omega at his side. The words slip between crackles of firewood and clink of goblets. I don't always catch names, but I learn tones. Sneers, scoffs, the oily reassurance of men who smile while sharpening knives. One night, when the moon is a thin hook in the sky, I hear a voice I know. Garrett. Told you, he says, the smirk almost audible. The moment he dragged her into the hall, they smelled weakness. Another voice answers, low and thoughtful. They smelled opportunity. There's a difference. Opportunity, Garrett repeats. You mean the chance to topple a king too distracted by an omega to see his own counsel slipping the leash? My grip tightens around the needle. The thread snaps. Careful, the second voice says. Walls remember what's said in anger. Let them remember. Garrett's chair scrapes. While he plays nursemaid to a ruined omega, others are doing the work he should have done years ago. The East is already listening. The North, too. All they need is proof he's lost the bite to rule. Ruined. The word sinks cold into my gut. The conversation breaks apart into clinking goblets and meaningless pleasantries. I sit in the glow of the fire, hands shaking, and understand 2 truths at once. Someone is starving the borderlands on purpose. And they plan to use me as the excuse to tear Daniel down. Later on patrol, Tomas confirms what my instincts are already screaming. There's talk, he says, keeping his voice low as we walk the inner walkway above the courtyard. Daniel allowed me this concession in place of freedom. A nightly loop of stone and shadow under escort, like a wolf's version of exercise. What kind of talk? I ask. He hesitates. His breath clouds in the cold air. Of a rival alpha, he says finally. Old bloodline, far east. Thinks the throne should never have passed to Daniel's father, let alone Daniel. Does this rival have a name? I press. Not one I should put to my tongue, he mutters. But I can tell you what his supporters call him. The True Fang. Arrogant, predictable, dangerous. They say the kingdom needs a king who isn't afraid of war, Tomas continues. One who doesn't leash himself for the sake of omegas and humans. And me? I ask. What do they say about me? He exhales slowly, and that's answer enough. They call you proof, he says, that the Alpha King has gone soft, that he keeps a broken thing in the Alpha Wing and calls it protection. Broken, ruined, soft. Words they think mean the same thing. We stop at the corner where the wall curves and the view opens onto the dark land beyond the fortress. Somewhere out there, my village curls in on itself against the cold, waiting for food that may never come. Do you believe them? I ask quietly. Tomas is silent a long time. The wind tugs at his cloak. I saw the way he looked when Garrett touched you. He says at last, I've followed that man into battle. This is the first time I've seen him truly close to losing control. That doesn't answer my question. He turns to me then, eyes steady. I think a king who finally has something to lose is more dangerous than one who doesn't, he says. For his enemies, at least. His enemies. The ones starving my people. The ones whispering about a ruined Omega at his side. As we finish the circuit and head back toward my barred window and carefully weighed prison, a strange calm settles over me. I came here to beg for crumbs and a pardon. They turned me into a weapon instead. If they want to use me as proof the king is unfit to rule, they're going to find out exactly how sharp an Omega can be when she stops trying not to cut anyone. They dress me like they're polishing a weapon they don't know how to use. Lisa's hands are gentle, but even she can't hide her disapproval when she laces me into a dark green gown that fits too well to be coincidence. The fabric clings at the waist, falls soft to the floor, leaving my shoulders bare. A thin gold chain settles at my throat like a claim. He chose this? I ask. She hesitates. It was laid out in his colors. His colors, not the kingdom's. His. By the time Tomas escorts me toward the great hall, my palms are damp, my pulse skipping against the chain. I can hear the crowd before I see them. Laughter too loud to be sincere. The hum of voices sharpened by wine and curiosity. What exactly is this gathering supposed to be? I murmur. Reassurance, Tomas says. The High Pax demanded a show of strength. The king agreed to give them a show. We step through the archway, and the hall swallows me whole. Banners hang from the rafters, each bearing a different crest. Wolves, moons, stylized claws. Tables grown under roasted meat and glistening fruit, while alphas in fine leathers and silks cluster in little knots, their eyes flicking toward the dais where Daniel stands. He's in black and gold, no armor tonight, but a fitted tunic that does nothing to soften him. His hair is braided back, exposing the cruel beauty of his face. When he looks up and sees me, the noise in the hall blurs, thinning to a low roar under the weight of his gaze. Every head turns to follow it. Ah, someone announces from near the dais, voice smooth as oil. The king's guest arrives. The man who steps forward to greet me is broad, older than Daniel, with iron threaded through his dark hair and a smile too wide to be friendly. His scent hits me first. Expensive wine, cold ambition. Lord Marius, Tomas mutters at my shoulder, barely moving his lips. High Alpha of the Western Pax. So this is one of the men Daniel needs to reassure. Marius stops before me and gives a shallow bow that somehow manages to be insulting. So the rumors are true, he says, eyes raking over me. Our fierce king keeps an Omega in the Alpha Wing after all. Heat licks up my spine. I force my shoulders back. My name is Roselle, I say. From Grey Hollow. Roselle from Grey Hollow, he repeats, like my village is a joke. Tell me, little one, do you enjoy being paraded in front of wolves who could snap you in half? The words are bright enough to draw laughter from the nearest table. It scrapes along my nerves, loud and cruel. I feel Daniel's presence before I see him move. It depends, I say, ignoring the way my pulse leaps as he descends from the dais. Are we talking about wolves or cowards hiding behind their titles? The laughter cuts off. Marius's eyes sharpen. He leans closer, close enough that the scent of wine on his breath makes my stomach twist. Careful, he murmurs. Your king's patience has limits. Mine are shorter. His fingers find my chin, grip not gentle, as he tilts my face side to side like he's inspecting a horse. The touch is casual, proprietary, the way you'd handle something that belongs to no one worth fearing. Something inside me recoils. Something inside Daniel snaps. A low growl rolls across the hall, vibrating in the stone. Marius's hand stills on my skin. Slowly, as if he's remembering where he is, he turns his head. Daniel stands a few paces away, eyes burning molten gold, jaw clenched so hard I can see the muscles jump. His fingers curl, knuckles whitening, and for a heartbeat, his nails lengthen, darkening into something that isn't quite human. Remove your hand, he says. 3 words. Quiet, deadly. Marius's smile stretches. My king, he says, not obeying. I meant no disrespect. I merely wish to see the Omega, who has occupied so much of your time. My time is not your concern, Daniel replies. Her comfort is. Her. Not the Omega, her. The bond flares under my skin, hot and sudden, responding to the possessive edge in his voice. The nearest alphas go still, instincts pricking, some of them unconsciously baring their throats a fraction. Marius notices. His eyes narrow. Forgive me, he says, and his fingers tighten instead of loosening. Pain sparks along my jaw. I must have forgotten how fragile your toy is. The word hits harder than the grip. Daniel moves. 1 second he's a few paces away. The next he's between us, hand wrapped around Marius's wrist. The speed of it drags a collective gasp from the room. Marius's eyes widen as Daniel squeezes, bones creaking audibly. I warned you once, Daniel says, voice low and shaking at the edges. I do not repeat myself. The air changes. Power floods the hall, thick and electric, pressing against my skin until it's hard to breathe. His scent spikes, storm and steel and something wild. The gold devours the brown in his eyes, pupils narrowing, teeth lengthening, just enough that when he speaks, they flash sharp in the torchlight. Marius tries to pull back. He can't. His face pales just a fraction. Your guests are watching, he says, a thread of strain in his voice. They should, Daniel growls. Let them learn what happens when someone lays hands on what is mine. The last word crashes through me. Mine! The bond surges, a punch straight to the lungs. For an instant, the hall disappears. The banners, the tables, the faces blurring into nothing but sound and heat. All I feel is him and me, the thread between us pulled so tight it burns. I swear I hear it snap into place. Marius does too. His nostrils flare. You bonded her? He spits. An Omega from some forgotten hole, and you? Daniel jerks him closer, so fast their noses almost touch. Choose your next words carefully, he says. Around us, wolves shift uncomfortably. Some avert their eyes in reflexive submission. Others stare, hunger and calculation warring in their expressions. Someone at the back whispers, He's going to shift, and the words skitter across stone like mice. They're not wrong. Daniel's shoulders bunch, muscles rippling under the thin fabric of his tunic. His spine arches, just slightly, like his body is remembering a different shape. I can feel his control fraying, each breath a ragged drag that scrapes against my own lungs through the bond. If he shifts here, in front of them, over me, they'll never fear anything more. They'll never forgive it either. Daniel, I say. It's the first time I've said his name in public. It feels like reaching into a cage to touch the beast inside. His head snaps toward me. For a second, there's nothing human in his eyes at all. I step closer anyway, placing my hand over the fist crushing Marius's wrist. Let him go, I whisper. He's not worth what they'll make of this. The room is so quiet, I can hear the fire crackle. Something shifts in his gaze. The gold doesn't fade, but it steadies, the frantic edge smoothing out as the bond hums between us, a tether tightening around his fury. Slowly, so slowly, Marius winces the whole way. Daniel releases his grip. The counselor snatches his hand back, rubbing at the reddening skin. He opens his mouth, some clever insult already forming, then shuts it when Daniel turns that blazing stare on him again. Insult me if you must, Daniel says, voice carrying easily to the farthest corners. Question my decisions, challenge my policies, but touch her again, and you will not leave this hall on 2 legs. Gasps again, but this time there's something else threaded through them. Recognition. Ownership. Every wolf in the room can smell it now. The bond, the claim, the way Daniel's body leans a fraction toward mine, even as he stands tall before his court. Whatever game they thought they were playing, the rules just changed. Marius bows, fists clenched at his sides. As you command, my king. He retreats, face carved from stone, and the crowd ripples away from us like a tide, suddenly desperate to be anywhere but between the Alpha King and the Omega, who just proved she could drag him back from the brink. Daniel doesn't look at me right away. His jaw works, breath still rough, hands flexing as if they miss the feel of a throat under them. When he finally does, the rawness in his eyes steals my words. This is what they wanted, he says quietly. Proof. Proof of what? I ask, though I already know. That I care, he says. That you are more than a petitioner I took pity on. That you can be used to control me. I should deny it. Tell him they're wrong. That this is still political, strategic, anything but personal. I don't. Because every nerve in my body is still singing from the way he said mine. And the part of me that came here only to beg is long gone. They're not wrong, I say softly. His mouth twists. No, he agrees. They're not. The music starts up again, forced and frantic, as if they can drown out what just happened with fiddles and drums. Laughter resumes in jagged bursts, but nothing is the same. They saw their king almost lose control over an Omega. And they saw that, for him, I'm not a symbol or a tool or a piece on a board. I'm the one weakness he can't quite bring himself to let go. The morning after the gathering, he doesn't apologize. He sends a schedule. Lisa finds me pacing my chamber and hands over a folded sheet thick with ink. My name sits at the top, written in an elegant, ruthless hand. Below, hours are carved into blocks. Court, training yard, strategy council, instruction. It seems the king intends to keep you busy, she says. Busy feels like too small a word for what follows. The first lesson is court etiquette, which is his way of saying, this is how you survive the wolves, who wear silk instead of fur. They don't expect him to join, but he does, taking a seat at the end of the long table, while a stiff-backed advisor explains how deep to bow, to which crest, and which forks to use in front of which bloodlines. I try at first. Then the advisor corrects the angle of my shoulders for the 3rd time with 2 sharp taps of his cane. Again, Lady Omega, he snaps. If you insist on remaining by the king's side, you will at least pretend to understand your place. Daniel's fingers drum once against the table. She's not a lady, he says. And her place is where I put her. Continue. Heat flares in my cheeks, not from embarrassment, from the way his gaze flicks to mine, as if checking I've heard the claim under the insult. When the cane taps my shoulder a 4th time, something inside me uncoils. Stop, I say. The word isn't loud. It lands like a stone dropped in still water. The advisor's hand freezes mid-air. For a heartbeat, his eyes go unfocused, the way wolves do when an order brushes their instincts. The room holds its breath. Then he jerks, blinking, and snatches his hand back, as if burned. He clears his throat. My apologies, my king. I didn't mean... You heard her, Daniel says, voice mild. Don't touch her again. Later, when the advisor has scuttled away and we're alone with the quiet echo of the hall, I stare at Daniel. "What was that?" I ask. "You tell me." He leans back in his chair, studying me like I'm a puzzle with missing pieces. "You gave a command. He followed it. He thought you'd be angry if he didn't." "He didn't look at me when he stopped," Daniel says. "He looked at you." I replay it in my head. The word, the stillness, the way every spine in the room tightened like they'd heard something I couldn't. "I'm an Omega," I say. "We don't give commands." "Maybe you're not just an Omega." The second lesson is in the training yard. He doesn't announce it. One moment I'm leaving the council chamber. The next, Tomas is steering me toward the open-air courtyard where soldiers spar in the dust. The ring of steel on steel carries on the wind, bright and violent. "You want me to fight?" I ask, as Daniel tosses a wooden dagger from hand to hand, testing its balance. "I want you to survive," he says. "If someone lays hands on you when I'm not there, I expect them to regret it." Garrett already regrets it. Not enough. He steps in front of me, close enough that I have to tilt my head back. He smells like sweat and leather and the faint sting of cold air. He places the dagger in my palm, closing my fingers around the hilt. "Show me what you know," he says. "I know very little. How to knee a man where it hurts, how to bite hard enough to draw blood, how to make myself small until a temper passes. My first attempt is clumsy, an awkward lunge that would get me killed if he let it. He doesn't. He catches my wrist, turning my own momentum against me until my back hits his chest. His breath warms the shell of my ear. "Again," he murmurs. "But this time, think first. You're smaller. Use it." We repeat the dance until my muscles burn and sweat slicks my spine. He corrects my stance with a touch at my hip, my shoulder, the curve of my wrist. Each brush of his fingers sends the bond humming. A low, insistent ache I pretend not to notice. At one point, he misjudges the distance. Our mouths end up inches apart, my dagger pressed to his ribs, his hand wrapped around my throat in reflex. We both go perfectly still. "If you're trying to convince them I'm not a weakness," I whisper, "this isn't helping." His grip loosens, thumb stroking once along my pulse before he steps back. "They're going to come for you," he says. "I won't always be fast enough. I need to know you'll be standing when I get there." It's not an apology, it's close. The third lesson isn't written on any schedule. It happens in the war room, late enough that most of the fortress is asleep. Maps are spread over the table, small carved wolves marking border posts. Candlelight throws Daniel's face into planes of gold and shadow as he traces supply routes with a scarred finger. I watch from the opposite side, too tired to pretend I'm not studying him. "Where did that scar come from?" I ask, nodding toward the pale line along his cheek. He doesn't look up. "Rogue pack," he says. "Years ago, I was younger, more eager to prove my teeth. And now? Now I've learned where teeth are useful." His gaze lifts, catches mine, "and where other kinds of sharpness do more damage." He taps a point on the map, the road that should have carried grain to Grey Hollow. "Someone cuts these lines, the kingdom starves by inches," he says. "Blame it on weather and greed, and nobody questions why the central packs feast while the borders thin." "Garrett," I say. "Garrett doesn't have the brains to orchestrate this," Daniel says. "He's a tool, not the hand that wields it." "The true Fang, then?" His eyes narrow. "You've been listening." "I live in your walls," I say. "They talk." Something like pride flickers across his face. It's gone quickly, replaced by the weary tension that never quite leaves his shoulders. "What about you?" I ask. "Any scars that don't show?" For a moment, I think he won't answer. "My father," he says finally. "He believed an alpha was only as strong as what he could kill. I decided I wanted to be strong enough to keep things alive. He called it weakness." "What do you call it?" "Difficult," he says dryly. Then, after a beat, softer. "Necessary." We fall into a pattern after that. Mornings in the halls, learning how to smile without baring my throat. Afternoons in the yard, bruises blooming under my clothes, as I learn where to plant my feet. how to turn my smallness into speed. Nights in the war room, arguments and quiet confessions tangled among ink and maps. Sometimes, when I raise my voice without thinking, the world stills. Once, a pair of sparring soldiers keep circling too close, their scuffle breaking my focus. The third time they bump into me, I turn and say, "Enough." They freeze mid-swing, eyes clearing like they've just woken from a dream. One of them actually drops his sword. Daniel watches, expression unreadable. "You felt that?" I ask later. "Every wolf in the yard did," he says. "Whatever is waking in you, Roselle, it's not just mine to ignore." We don't talk about the other thing that's waking, the way my chest tightens when he laughs, rare and rough, or how his gaze finds me first in any room. We don't talk about how, sometimes, when his hand brushes my back after a long council session, my entire body sighs like it's finally come home. Instead, we spar and study and pretend the lessons are only about power. But every hour I spend learning how to stand by his side makes one truth clearer. They thought they were forging me into a chain to drag him down. Without meaning to, he's teaching me how to become a blade. The news arrives on a scrap of parchment that smells like smoke and home. Daniel doesn't hand it to me himself. He summons me to the war room, the map-strewn chamber colder than usual, despite the fire. The council is already gathered. Garrett lounging like a vulture, a few others stone-faced, Tomas against the far wall trying to look like part of it instead of out of place. Daniel stands at the head of the table, knuckles white on the edge. When I enter, every gaze swings toward me. The parchment sits in the center of the map like a stain. "Roselle," Daniel says. My name sounds heavier than usual. "Sit." I don't. "What happened?" He studies me for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth I can take. Then he nods to Tomas. The guard crosses the room and offers me the parchment. The seal is broken, but I'd know that mark anywhere. The crude wolf's head, Elder Harrow, carved into everything he thought important. My tongue tastes like ash as I read the shaky script beneath. "To the true Fang, rightful king of our people." The room blurs. I blink harder. "We have among us an Omega the Alpha King favors. She has gone to his fortress to beg for our village. I can deliver her into your hands when she returns, if you promise Grey Hollow protection when you claim the throne." The words swim, jagged and ugly. My fingers crinkle the parchment. Elder Harrow, the man who blessed my brother's naming day, who held my hand when my mother died and told me the ancestors watched over good girls who knew their place, selling me like a lamb at market. "It was intercepted by one of my riders," Daniel says quietly, "on the northern road, bound for a camp we believe houses the True Fang's supporters." I lift my gaze. "So it's real." "It's his hand," Tomas says from behind me, voice tight. "I'd swear it on my life." Garrett's smile is slow, satisfied. "You see, my king? Even her own people know she's best used as a bargaining chip." The words hit harder than the letter. "My people," I repeat. Daniel's eyes flash. "Enough, Garrett." "No, let him talk," I say, surprising them both. My voice sounds thin but steady. If they're willing to trade me for protection, then maybe they deserve whatever's coming. Garrett's brows rise, impressed despite himself. "Omegas from the borderlands grow teeth, it seems." My brother's name isn't on the parchment, but I feel him between every line. Mina's too. Grey Hollow with its crooked roofs and stubborn fields, Harrow offering their safety to a stranger in exchange for my blood. I swallow hard. They don't even know I'm not coming back. Daniel's gaze sharpens. "You were always going back with an escort when it was safe," he says. "I promised you that." "Did you?" Garrett drawls. "Because from where the packs sit, it looks very much like you keep her here for yourself." The room goes quiet. My cheeks burn. "This isn't about appearances," I say, before Daniel can snarl something that will make everything worse. "It's about the fact that if the True Fang knows I exist, he'll come for me, whether I'm in Grey Hollow or here." "Here, I can protect you," Daniel says. "Out there, you said you could protect my village," I shoot back, but he's already wrapped his hands around their throats. Harrow invited him in. Roselle, Tomas warns, but I'm done pulling my punches. I spread the letter on the map, pinning it with both palms. What else does it say? I ask. What price did he set on me? Daniel's jaw works. He offers information, he says finally. Routes, stores, weak points in the border. In exchange, the True Fang sends wolves to take the Omega back when she returns from the fortress. A chill snakes down my spine. I picture it too easily. Riders waiting in the trees, my village watching from behind shutters, while they hand me over and call it salvation. So they were going to give me back, I murmur. Just not to you. Silence. Garrett clears his throat. You see the problem, my king. If word of this spreads, the High Packs will question your judgment. Keeping an Omega whose own elders sell her to your enemy? They'll say you lack discernment. They already say that, Daniel replies flatly. He looks tired, not in the way of a man who has lost a night's sleep, but like someone who's been carrying a kingdom on his back and just realized part of it rots from the inside. You could send her home, Garrett adds, feigning reluctance, with a village under guard, escorted by a loyal pack. Distance yourself from the scandal. Prove you're not attached. Attached, weak, ruined. They don't say the words, but they hang in the air. My heart stutters. Home. The thought slices through me. Mina's smile, my brother's laughter, the way the fields smell after rain. The idea of never seeing them again is a fresh wound. But home also means Harrow's ink on this page. The council's whispers, being bound and dragged away under a banner that isn't Daniel's. Is that what you want? Daniel asks. He doesn't look at Garrett when he says it. He looks at me. It would be so easy to lie, to shrug and say I'll go where I'm told, to pretend the decision isn't mine. Instead, I hear my own voice in the throne room, sharp and shaking. My station is starving. Bravery is all that's left. I straighten. If I go back now, I hand the True Fang exactly what he wants. I say, an Omega you've already marked. Proof your loyalty can be bought with a village's fear. Garrett snorts. You think staying makes you less of a weakness? I think staying makes me a choice, I snap. My choice, not theirs, not his. Daniel's mouth tightens, but there's a flare of something in his eyes that looks suspiciously like pride. You would stand with the king who's made you a target, Garrett says, instead of the people who raised you. The people who tried to sell me, I correct. The words tremble, but they're true. I'll always want my village safe. I'll always love my brother. But I won't crawl back just to be handed over like a debt they're tired of carrying. I turn to Daniel. You said you'd protect them if you could. I'm holding you to that. But I'm not leaving this fortress, so your enemy can use me as a leash. The room holds its breath. Slowly, Daniel nods. Then you stay, he says, not as a prisoner, as part of this fight. Garrett scoffs. You mean to let an Omega sit in on war councils now? If that Omega is the reason the True Fang thinks he can win, then yes, Daniel says. We use every weapon, every mind. Or do you prefer we keep stumbling around blind while our enemies use her better than we do? Garrett's lips flatten. He bows, stiff and furious. As you wish, my king. He leaves with the others, grumbling in low voices. Soon it's just Daniel, Tomas, and me, the parchment still bleeding its ugly truth over the map. You don't owe me this, Daniel says quietly. Your loyalty, your... Stand. I'm not doing it for you, I lie. The bond hums, calling me a liar. Maybe I'm doing it for all of us. For the girl who walked into this fortress to beg. For the king who nearly shifted in front of his court. For the wolves who will die if we lose. Then why? He asks. Because someone decided I'm the battlefield, I say. If I walk away now, I let them fight over me like spoil. If I stay, I help decide where the first strike lands. A slow, dangerous smile touches his mouth. Then help me, he says. Show me where to hit them so they never see it coming. For the first time since I left Grey Hollow, the word we feels less like a threat and more like a promise. The blood moon rises like a wound over the fortress. I see it first from my chamber window. A swollen red disc hanging low over the trees, bleeding light onto the stone. The air feels thicker, every sound sharpened. Wolves below the cliff howl in restless waves, their voices vibrating in my bones. Lisa crosses herself when she sets down my cloak. "Stay inside tonight," she whispers. "Lock the door, pray." "For what?" I ask. "That the king is strong enough to hold," she says, and leaves before I can answer. The summons comes moments later, a sharp knock. Tomas stands in the doorway, armor strapped tight, eyes already glowing faintly. "The council wants you in the great hall," he says. "The king as well." "Now?" "Now." The corridors seethe with tension. Guards move in pairs, sense spiked with anticipation and fear. Somewhere above us, a bell tolls once, twice. Short, clipped notes that turn my stomach to ice. Alarm. "Tomas," I murmur. "What's happening?" He doesn't look at me. "Rumors of movement in the east," he says. "Scouts missing. The king wants everyone where he can see them." Everyone important, he means, including the weakness the enemy keeps whispering about. The great hall is already crowded when we arrive. Banners hang limp in the stifling air. Nobles cluster in tight knots, voices low and sharp. Counselors line the dais, pretending calm. Daniel stands at the center, like he was carved from the same stone under our feet. Back straight, shoulder squared, jaw clenched. When he sees me, something in his posture eases. It shouldn't, not tonight, but it does. "You came," he says. "You called," I answer. I assumed that meant it wasn't optional. A ghost of a smile touches his mouth. It doesn't reach his eyes. "The blood moon makes our kind restless," he says quietly. "Old grievances sharpen. Old loyalties shift. If the true fang means to strike, it will be now." "So you brought all your favorite targets into one room," I say. "Efficient." "Dangerous," he corrects. "But necessary. I'd rather see which wolves bare their teeth than be bitten from behind." The bell tolls again. This time, it doesn't stop. Doors slam somewhere beyond the hall. A roar rises, muffled by stone. Then another. The scent of smoke threads through the air. Garrett pushes through the crowd, cloak half fastened, eyes bright with something too eager to be fear. "The east gate is under attack," he announces. "Our own sentries opened it from the inside." Hidden sympathizers. Traitors inside the walls. For a heartbeat, sound fragments. Daniel's voice cuts through it. "Seal the inner courts," he orders. "No one in or out without my mark." Wolves surge to obey, armor flashing. The hall empties and tightens all at once, bodies shifting from anxious nobility to braced warriors. Someone shoves a spear into Thomas's hands. Someone else bars the main doors. The next impact rattles the hinges. "Stay behind me," Daniel murmurs, low enough for only me to hear. "No," I whisper back. "You'll need your hands free." He doesn't argue. That's how I know how bad it is. The doors burst inward on the third blow. Wolves flood the threshold, some in the king's colors, some not. The difference is in their eyes. Loyalists snarl toward the intruders. Rebels smile like they've already won. At their head stands a man I've never seen and somehow recognize. Tall, broad. His hair is streaked with silver. His eyes pale, almost colorless, like ice that never melts. He carries no banner, but the wolves at his back radiate obedience. The true fang. He steps into the hall as if it belongs to him and sweeps a mocking bow. "Alpha King," he says. "I would say it's an honor, but I make it a habit not to lie on sacred nights." Daniel doesn't return the bow. "This is my hall," he says. "You come into it like a thief and expect respect?" "A thief?" The true fang laughs. "No, pup. I came to collect what's been mishandled. A kingdom, a crown, and..." His gaze slides past Daniel, finds me. A very interesting omega. The bond snaps taut, a warning. Every muscle in Daniel's body tightens. "She doesn't concern you," he says. "On the contrary," the true fang replies. "You've made sure she concerns everyone." He gestures lazily. "You scent-marked her in your own throne room. You nearly shifted over her in front of half your court. Do you truly think wolves built on blood and hierarchy would miss what that means?" His wolves spread through the hall, blades glinting. Loyal guards regroup around Daniel, Tomas among them. The line between sides becomes painfully clear. Whoever owns the Omega, the True Fang says, voice carrying, owns the king. He moves faster than I expect. One heartbeat he's in front of his pack, the next he's beside me, hand snaking out to grab my arm. His grip is iron, cruelly tight. The bond shrieks, every instinct in me recoiling. Daniel reacts like he's been shot. He roars. The sound is not human. It vibrates through my chest, rattling my bones. Power slams into the room, hot and suffocating. His eyes go fully gold, pupils a razor-thin slice of black. His spine arches as his body begins to shift, bones popping, muscles bulging under his tunic. "Daniel!" I shout, but he's already half gone. Someone screams. Wolves drop to their knees in reflexive submission as his aura slams over them. The air reeks of fear and adrenaline. The True Fang laughs, tugging me closer like a shield. "See?" he calls. "He can't control himself. One touch, and your mighty king turns feral. This is who you follow?" Daniel lunges. Claws rip from his fingers, lengthening, catching torchlight. His teeth stretch, lips pulling back in a snarl that promises blood. He's aiming for the True Fang's throat, but with me in his grip, the lines blur. For a wild instant, I'm not sure which of us Daniel will reach first. I do the only thing I can. I move. Yanking hard, I twist out of the True Fang's hold. Not cleanly, his nails rake my skin, but enough. Pain flares along my arm. I use it, throw myself between them, planting my feet on the cold stone. "Stop," I say. The word is a command, dragged from somewhere deeper than fear. The world freezes. Daniel skids to a halt, claws inches from my shoulder. The True Fang's arm hangs mid-reach. The packed hall hums with stunned, instinctive obedience. Power rushes through me, burning hot and bright, riding the bond between us like a live wire. For a breath, I feel them all, every wolf in the room like a spark in my blood. Their attention slams into me, choking. "Roselle," Daniel rasps, voice warped, half-shifted. "Move." "No." My heart jackhammers, but my voice doesn't shake. "You don't want to kill me, and he wants you rabid and stupid." I flick a glance at the True Fang. "Don't give him what he came for." The True Fang's eyes narrow. "Interesting," he murmurs. "What else can you make him do, little Omega?" I step backward until my spine hits Daniel's chest. He's burning hot, trembling, the beast just under his skin. Slowly, deliberately, I set my hand over his heart. "Breathe," I whisper. The bond roars. For a moment, I'm drowning in him. The rage, the terror of losing control. The savage, possessive need to tear apart anything that touches me. Under it all, a raw, aching fear, not of death, but of becoming the monster his father was, of proving every critic right. "Look at me," I say. His gaze drags down from the enemy's throat to my face. Gold meets mine, wild and desperate. I don't look away. "You're the king," I say softly. "Act like it." The words land like a slap. His next breath shudders through both of us. Slowly, agonizingly, the claws retract, muscles ease. His spine straightens behind me. He doesn't fully shift back, not with the blood moon overhead and an enemy in his hall, but he's no longer half feral. The growl in his chest changes, less madness, more warning. The True Fang watches, something like fascination in his gaze. "You've trained her well," he says. "Or perhaps she trained you." His wolves shift uneasily. Some of them look at me now, not as prey, but as something else. A variable, a threat. Good. "You said whoever owns the Omega owns the king," I call, loud enough for both sides to hear. My voice carries strangely, riding that same power. Heads turn, ears prick. I am not owned. A murmur ripples through the hall. "I walked into this fortress on my own feet," I continue. "I chose to stay when my village tried to trade me. I stand here because I decided I would not be anyone's leash." I glance back at Daniel. His jaw is tight, but there's a spark in his eyes now. Pride, trust. So hear me, I say, turning again to face the true Fang. I am not your proof that he is weak. I am proof that he has something worth fighting for. If you think that makes him easier to topple, you're a bigger fool than the council says. He bares his teeth. You think standing between us will save him? No, I say. I think it will doom you. Behind me, the king I've anchored rolls his shoulders, power coiling in controlled waves. For trespassing in my hall, Daniel says, voice low and deadly, I might have killed you quickly. His hand comes to rest lightly on my shoulder, not restraining, not possessing, but there, visible, chosen. For threatening what is mine, he finishes, I won't be nearly so kind. The blood moon burns down through the high windows, painting us all in red. The night of the broken crown has begun, and for the first time, it's clear to everyone that the battlefield doesn't just belong to alphas. It belongs to the Omega standing between them, deciding who gets to walk away. The throne room is never meant to be a battlefield, but by the time we fall back to it, the stone already smells like one. Smoke clings to the rafters. Banners hang in tatters, singed and slashed. Wolves clash in front of the dais. Loyalists and rebels locked together in snarls and steel. The red light of the blood moon pouring through the high windows like spilled wine. Daniel fights at the center of it all. He's half-shifted, caught between man and wolf. Claws tip his fingers, his teeth too long for human speech. When he moves, it's with a brutal, efficient grace that drops enemies faster than they can circle. But each kill drags him further from himself. I feel it through the bond, a rising tide of rage and instinct that threatens to drown everything else. Daniel! I shout over the din. He doesn't hear me, or he hears and can't answer. A rebel launches at his flank. Daniel catches him midair and snaps his neck with one twist. The sound turns my stomach. The true Fang laughs from the base of the dais. Look at him, he calls to his wolves, blood streaking his own tunic. Your king already belongs to the beast. All he needed was a push. His pack surges forward, pressing ours harder. For every rebel we knock down, 2 more take their place. The crowd from the Great Hall has mostly fled. But a ring of counselors and high-rank alphas remains at the edges, forced witnesses to the kingdom tearing itself apart. Roselle! Tomas appears at my side, panting, a cut bleeding down his temple. You need to get back to the Alpha Wing. We can hold them here. You can't, I say. Not if he loses himself. As if to prove my point, Daniel hurls another wolf aside and lets out a roar that shakes dust from the ceiling. Some of the fighters, ours and theirs, stagger, instinct dropping them to their knees. The remaining rebels grin, drunk on chaos. The bond writhes inside my chest. It would be so easy to recoil from it, to slam walls up and let him spiral alone. Instead, I step toward him. Each pace is a fight through bodies and panic. I duck under a wild swing, shove past a snarling rebel who doesn't recognize me as anything but another target. Tomas curses and follows, blade flashing to clear a path. King! Someone shouts. Behind you! Daniel whirls, claws up, catching an attacker by the throat. His eyes, when they flick to the side, brush over me, and don't recognize what they see. They're pure gold now, pupils narrowed, no brown left at all. He could kill me by accident. I walk faster. Roselle, stop, Tomas hisses. He's not? Then he needs a reason to be, I say. The last few strides feel like stepping into a storm. His aura hits me full force. Power, fury, wildness. Every hair on my arms lifts. My knees want to bend. My head wants to bow. I don't. I grab his wrist. Heat sears my palm. His head snaps down, lip curled. A snarl ripping from his throat. For a breath, I'm staring into the eyes of a creature who barely remembers language. Mine, he growls. Yes, I say, voice low and steady. And I am yours, so listen to me. The bond explodes. It's like a door slamming open. His emotions flood through, rage and fear, and a fierce, bone-deep terror of losing me in the blood and noise. Underneath it all, something sharper, the memory of his father, full beast, tearing into anything that moved. His whole life spent promising he would never become that. Come back, I whisper, pressing closer until my chest meets his. You are not him. You are not theirs. You are mine, and I am not done with you yet. I pour everything I have down the bond. Every moment we've shared in the war room and training yard. Every bruise he apologized for, with a look instead of words. Every time he said my name like a vow. Power answers, racing along that thread, wrapping him in it. The change is slow and painful to watch. His breathing stutters. The claws retract bit by bit. Muscles shudder as his body fights itself, wanting to tear and obey in the same heartbeat. His teeth are still too long when he speaks, but the word is clear. Roselle. I'm here. I slide my hand up, fingers finding the back of his neck, anchoring. Stay with me. Around us, the battle surges and falters, warriors instinctively circling away from the eye of the storm. The true Fang watches, eyes narrowed, something like unease finally cracking his confidence. This doesn't save you, he calls. You can't rule if your Omega must leash you in front of your own court. I turn. Maybe it's the blood moon. Maybe it's the bond, thrumming hot and bright. Whatever it is, when I face him, the hall seems to tilt, focus snapping toward me. Wolves pause mid-swing, swords hang frozen. I feel all of them again, loyalists and rebels both. 1,000 instincts prickle at the edge of my consciousness, waiting. What is an Omega worth? I ask, voice carrying farther than it should. My own side shifts, startled. The rebels sneer, but their ears tip forward, despite themselves. For as long as I've lived, I continue, you've told us we're nothing but vessels and bargaining chips. You sell us, you cage us, you trade us to enemies, and call it strategy. I lift my chin, fingers still cinched in the back of Daniel's tunic. Look at me now. Silence deepens. Even the clash of steel quiets. I walked into this fortress to beg and became the excuse for this war, I say. You thought you could use me to prove a king weak, but you forgot something. I take a step forward, drawing Daniel with me. He comes willingly, eyes back to molten brown ringed in gold, power leashed instead of wild. You forgot that bonds run both ways, I say. You forgot that if you grab the leash, you put your own neck in reach. I let power ride my words the way it did when I stopped him in the hall. Kneel, I command. Not to Daniel, not to our allies, but to the ones who came to steal us. The word cracks through the throne room like lightning. Rebels stagger. Some fight it, teeth bared, muscles straining. Others drop instantly, pulled down by instincts older than reason. Even among the loyalists, a few knees hit stone before their owners remember, I'm not their alpha. The true Fang wavers. For a heartbeat, his legs bend. His aura snarls in protest, fighting the pull. Impossible, he breathes. You're an Omega. Maybe, I say. Or maybe your bloodline isn't the only one the old laws favored. Daniel's arm slides around my waist, steadying us both. Now, he murmurs near my ear, voice steadier, anchored, while they're off balance. We move together. He surges forward, blade flashing. I keep my hand on him, feeding focus instead of fury, guiding his strikes along the currents of power I can suddenly feel, where the rebel's will is weakest, where fear eats at their resolve. When he falters, I push strength through the bond. When I waver, his presence shoves courage back into my lungs. We are not two weapons now. We are one. The true Fang roars and meets Daniel head-on. They clash in front of the throne, steel shrieking. Sparks fly, each impact sends shockwaves through the room. For a moment, they're evenly matched. The rival alpha is older, more seasoned in raw violence. Daniel is faster, driven by something the other man doesn't understand. Me. Your father would be ashamed, the true Fang snarls, locking blades, reduced to hiding behind an Omega's skirts. Funny, Daniel grunts. I was just thinking how he'd admire you. The same hunger, the same stupidity. He feints left, then drops low, driving his shoulder into the true Fang's ribs. The older alpha stumbles. I seize the opening, voice cutting through their struggle. Stand down, I say, not to Daniel, but to the wolves still fighting for the usurper. Your alpha is losing. Choose whether you fall with him. More rebels' knees hit stone. Some throw down their weapons entirely, chests heaving, eyes flicking between us and their leader. The line fractures. The true Fang senses it. Desperation flares in his scent. With a roar, he breaks away from Daniel and lunges. For me. He thinks I'm the weakness. He's wrong. I don't step back. I step in, twisting aside at the last second the way Daniel taught me, driving my dagger, forgotten at my hip for most of the fight, up under his ribs. Shock flashes across his face. Up close, his eyes are just pale, not special at all. An Omega, he chokes. A queen, I correct. He crumples. The room exhales. Rebels who hadn't yet yielded drop their weapons. Some clasp their hands behind their heads. Others simply sag where they stand, like the fight has leaked out of them. Loyalists close in, shackling hands, binding wounds. Counselors stare, stunned into silence. Daniel stands over the fallen alpha, chest heaving. Blood darkens his tunic, not all of it his. He looks at the body, then at me. You disobeyed, he says, voice rough. You needed disobeying, I answer. For a second, we simply breathe the same air, the bond pulsing between us, less a chain, more a circle. Then, in front of everyone, he reaches for my hand. Witness, he calls to the room, voice ringing. Tonight, an Omega stood where no one said she could, and saved your king from his own worst instincts. She fought beside me. She commanded you. She killed the traitor who would have worn my crown. No one speaks. The old hierarchy is dead, Daniel says. What we build next will not be. He lifts our joined hands, blood and moonlight painting our skin, and in the stunned silence that follows, I finally understand what an Omega is worth. Exactly as much as she decides to be. The fortress smells different after a war. Less of iron and anticipation, more of smoke scrubbed from stone, herbs crushed under healers' hands, meat roasting in celebration because the kingdom still stands. The banners hang new and unburned. The cracks in the walls are plastered, but nothing can cover the memory of the night the crown almost broke. I still wake sometimes with the echo of it in my bones. On the morning, it's all finally over. Trials held, traitors exiled or buried, the True Fang's banner burned to ash. Daniel comes to my chamber without guards or counselors or excuses. He closes the door behind him and leans against it like he needs it to stay upright. I have something for you, he says. I arch a brow. Another schedule? More lessons in how not to embarrass your court? His mouth twitches. No, you already do that better than they do. He crosses the room and hands me a rolled parchment, tied with blue ribbon. My fingers hesitate at the seal. His, I realize, though the wax is pressed a little crooked, like he did it himself instead of letting a scribe. What is it? I ask. Read? The letters swim for a second before settling into meaning. By decree of the Alpha King, full pardon for Joran of Grey Hollow, convicted of theft from royal stores, restitution of grain and livestock to the border village, continued protection under royal guard. My brother's name, my village. My heart stutters. I don't understand, I whisper. You've already sent rations, riders, healers. This is more than temporary aid, Daniel says. It's a promise. Whatever government we build from here, it won't balance itself on the hunger of people like you ever again. I swallow. People like me? Omegas, he says. Border wolves. Anyone who learned early that surviving meant staying small. He takes a breath, jaw tightening like the next words cost him something. And there's one more line, he adds. At the bottom. I look. Should Roselle of Grey Hollow choose to return to her village, she will travel under royal guard and remain under the crown's protection, answerable only to the king. Freedom written in ink and law. My fingers go numb. You're sending me away, I say. I'm giving you the choice I took from you the night I locked that door. He answers softly. You came here to beg for your brother's life, not to be dragged into my wars and my bed of thorns. Heat flickers over my skin at the implication. He doesn't look away. If you want your old life back, I'll give it, he says. Your brother safe, your village fed, my riders at your borders. You'll never have to see this fortress again. And if I stay? My voice is barely more than breath. His eyes darken. Then we have a different problem. He steps closer, close enough that I can feel the heat of him, smell the familiar mix of leather and rain, and something uniquely his. I have spent months, he says, trying to prove I can control myself around you, for the sake of the court, for the sake of the crown, for the sake of the part of me that still hears my father's voice when I close my eyes. His hand lifts, hesitates, then settles at my jaw, thumb finding the same spot it always does, the one that makes my pulse leap. Here's the truth, Roselle, he murmurs. I never wanted to control myself around you. The bond thrums, warm and sure. Then why try? I ask. Because I was terrified. His thumb strokes once along my cheek. That if I let myself want, I'd become something you'd have to save the kingdom from, instead of with. He lets go, steps back just enough that I can breathe. So, he says, what do you want? A cottage on the edge of the woods, your brother and sister and quiet? Or a fortress full of wolves who will fight you every step as we drag them into a future they never imagined? I think of Grey Hollow, the fields, the crooked blue door, the girl who walked into the forest with nothing but a pendant and desperation. I think of the way Harrow's ink looked on that letter, selling me for safety. I think of this fortress, the training yard dust under my boots, the war room maps under my hands, the court gasping as I commanded them to kneel. I think of a king on the edge of madness, and the way his eyes cleared when I said his name. I want to see home, I say. Once. To say goodbye properly. Something like pain flickers across his face, gone too quickly. And after? He asks. Ask me then. He does. The journey to Grey Hollow takes 3 days with the escort he insists on. Tomas at my side, a dozen riders in Daniel's colors, wagons heavy with grain. The village looks smaller than I remember, houses hunched against the wind like they're ashamed. My brother meets me at the road, taller and thinner, but his grin is the same. Mina flings herself at my waist, chattering through tears. Elder Harrow watches from a distance, face pinched. He doesn't come closer. I don't go to him. I walk the fields, the paths I used to run barefoot as a child, the stream where I first wondered why the moon made me restless when it left everyone else sleepy. Every step feels like slipping into a dress I've outgrown, comforting and tight at the same time. At night, I sit by the fire in our cottage while Joran sleeps and Mina drools on my shoulder, and I realize something I can't unknow. The girl who left this place wouldn't recognize the woman who came back. In the morning, when Daniel's messenger rides in with fresh horses and a sealed note, "Are you coming home?" my answer is ready. I return to the fortress by choice. The stone no longer feels like a cage. The guards nod instead of sneer. Lisa cries a little when she sees me. Tomas pretends he doesn't. The court gathers like crows as I walk the hall, whispers flitting from lip to lip. He is waiting in the throne room, not on the throne, but at the base of the dais, as if he couldn't bear the distance. His shoulders loosen when our eyes meet, something relieved and unbearably vulnerable breaking through his careful mask. Well? He asks. I stop in front of him, close enough that the scent of him drowns out the hall. Grey Hollow will be all right, I say. The fields will grow. Joran is learning to live without stealing. Mina thinks your riders are the stuff of legend. And you? His voice is rough. I got what I went for, I say. Food, a pardon, a future for them. He swallows. Then, I also found something I wasn't looking for, I cut in. A kingdom that needs rebuilding, a king who needs watching, and a place where my voice doesn't echo back off empty walls. I take his hand. I don't wait for him to offer it. I'm staying, I say, but not as your weakness, not as something you hide in a tower and apologize for. His fingers tighten around mine, the slightest tremor betraying him. How then? He whispers. As your partner, I answer. Your queen, if you mean the word. The one who will argue with you in council, stand with you on battlefields, and drag you back from the edge when you forget you're more than your teeth. Silence falls over the hall. Somewhere to the side, Garrett chokes on his own tongue. Good. Daniel's eyes brighten, gold sparking. Roselle of Grey Hollow, he says, voice carrying. Will you stand beside me? Not beneath, not behind, beside, while we build a kingdom that remembers what power is for. I remember kneeling at dirt floors, grapes of mold in my hands, elders telling me omegas were made to be grateful for whatever they were given. I squeeze his hand. Yes, I say, but you should know something. He lifts a brow. What's that? I'm not done remaking what that title means. A slow smile curves his mouth, more dangerous than any snarl. Good, he says. I never wanted a queen I could control. He turns to the court, still watching, still stunned. Then witness, he declares. Your king and your omega. The old order broke on the night of the blood moon. What rises now belongs to both of us. One by one, they kneel. Some in genuine loyalty, some in wary calculation, some because instincts drag them down when faced with the combined weight of our bond. It doesn't matter. The sight is the same. An entire court bowing not just to an alpha king, but to the omega at his side. My omega. My king. The thought echoes between us, bright and fierce, as we stand together on the broken bones of the world we inherited and dare to imagine something better. If you enjoyed this story, tell me where you're watching from and which moment hit you hardest. The first time he warned he couldn't control himself, the night of the blood moon battle, or the moment Roselle chose to come back as queen.